Hey, everybody, welcome back to another Be Live interview with a women's speaker, featured speaker, Cookie White of McMurray, Pennsylvania. Welcome to you, Cookie.
Thank you very much, Marnie. I'm really happy to be here this morning.
And I'm excited to have you here. And it's been so fun getting to know you as you've discovered womenspeakers.com and have been, such a great speaker to do all the stuff. A lot of the speakers come and they do some of the stuff. And I just love your heart that you just want to do it all and get it all right. And that's so beautiful. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so delighted to be here, Marnie. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. And I'm going to go ahead and just start into your quotes.
Okay.
In your darkest cave, God will bring the light.
God does bring the light wherever we are. And that particular thought came to me when I went through a very dark cave of depression. I went through it when I started playing tug of war with God where I wanted to live. My husband and I met in a field office in Virginia. And that's where I lived all my life, was born and raised. And then we went to Idaho Falls, Idaho for 2 years. And then God put us in Pittsburgh. And so I thought, a couple of years in Pittsburgh and I'm back in Virginia raising my babies, going to church with my parents and just being in the South. And God had other plans for me. And when that didn't materialize, that we could go back to Virginia, I started playing a little tug of war with God. And when you play tug of war with God, you're not going to win. I'm into a very dark place, but in that dark place, God brought the light. He showed me that I needed to get out of this cave. He had other plans for me, and that the plan was not to stay in the darkness. The plan was to follow the light and get out of there and be the person He wanted me to be. And I needed to do that in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I couldn't do that in Virginia. So He has brought so much light to my life because I left and stayed gone. So God is here. I am who I am today because I stayed in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I love that analogy of the tunnel. And I always think, we have that phrase, there's light at the end of the tunnel, or wait till you see the light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we think the light at the end of the tunnel is moving back, whereas God says He's always the light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And He just didn't want me to stay there. And He said, sweetie, you gotta take this rope and come with me. You're not going to stay there.
Why Jesus? Why now?
Why Jesus? Why now? It was a phrase that hit me because I have been asked a lot of things about my faith. And being raised as a Christian, a lot of times when people question your faith, I hate to use the word ignorantly, but you do say, I've just always believed it. And when one of my children started asking me some really hard questions, I thought, I need to know the answers to these questions. I just can't say I've just always believed it. And we live in an age of progressive Christianity where people want Christianity to progress where, it's an antiquated piece of literature, the Bible. So we need to progress into the 21st century, what we believe. And I needed to get back to the roots and figure out what it was I believed and have solid answers for that. And so I just started writing them. Every question I was asked, I came up with an answer. And it is in one of the books that we've written called Why Jesus, Why Now? The Relevance of Christianity in the 21st Century, where I attempted to answer all the questions. And you can never have all the answers. You will never have all the answers. But at least to explain what it is we believe and why.
That's really cool. And you guys can check that out at Cookie's website, which is thesoundingboardteachingministries.com.
Mm-hmm.
The Spirit of God is not barricaded by dementia.
The dementia factor is something that God has taught me this beautiful lesson. My mother is 97 years old, and she is in a nursing home in Virginia. My mother's blind. She cannot move around on her own. But Mama has always been my mentor. And she has always taught me, pray, pray, pray.
Right.
So when I go down there, a lot of times when I ask my mother to pray, I take my phone and I tape her praying. And it has been such, a dawning of light. It's like the dementia curtain rolls back when Mama prays and she does business with Jesus. And it has taught me that the Spirit of God that we are given when we accept Christ, that Spirit is communing with the Spirit of God. And nothing, no disease, nothing that we face will barricade that from getting to the throne of grace and mercy.
Wow, I love that.
That lesson alone, I think God left her here so she could teach me that today, because sometimes she doesn't even remember who I am. But when she prays, she remembers Jesus, and she does business with Jesus all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. My mom, toward the end with her dementia, she couldn't, a lot of times she couldn't really form words. She was just saying gibberish or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the last memories of the head nurse on her floor before mom passed away, mom had noticed another lady crying. She moved her chair over to the other lady, just held her hand and patted her hand, and the other lady settled down. And even without words, just the peace and love of Jesus just can flow through a soul. And it's so beautiful that God's love is not barricaded by dementia. I love that.
Or anything. It's like, you really do this with the Lord, all the time.
Amen. So true. I've got some good news and some bad news.
That was told to me by a PCP when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. He said that's how he started it. He said, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is it's not as bad as it could be. And the bad news is breast cancer. And that started me on a journey that I never thought that I would go on. Breast cancer is not in our family history. My mother is one of 4 girls raised on a tobacco farm in Virginia. No cancer history at all. This one dropped out of the sky. And I have learned on that journey that the good news was that God was with me. My friends who prayed for me became the wind beneath my wings. And I was able to get through that entire journey because God was with me. And even though we receive bad news about things, there's always God is there to walk with us through it. Yeah. So whatever news we receive, even though it appears to be so dark, it can be good.
It's beautiful. And honestly, no matter what the news is, because we have Jesus as our Savior, because the Holy Spirit resides in us, because God is God, there is so much hope and help.
It is every time. God is always there to help us, regardless of what we face. And I think it was part of my journey because of women's ministry, because a woman can come to me, or I can hear of a woman that's been diagnosed with cancer. My mind immediately knows where her mind goes.
Absolutely.
Because I was raised at a time when you get that diagnosis, you wonder if you're going to live.
Right.
And so there's hope. And I think it was part of my journey.
Oh, it's really cool. Jesus still walks through fiery furnaces.
Oh, Marnie, this was part of my breast cancer journey too. And this was such a lovely, lovely moment for me. I had to have 33 radiation treatments as part of my cancer treatment. And those radiation treatments had 5 days a week for 6 weeks, 3 boosters at the end. And I could not disrupt those treatments. If your skin got too burned where you had to stop, you would have to start all over again. So my prayer was, I'm blonde, blue-eyed, I'm sensitive, my skin is, that I could get through these treatments. So what happened during the treatments was that a friend of mine sent me Isaiah 43. When I walk through the fire, I won't run. And it was such a beautiful verse. And I took that verse to heart. And every day when I went in there and everyone would leave me by myself because no one can be in that room with you, I would pray, God, just please lay your hand on me that I won't get burned. And just like you walked with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and you were in the furnace with them, please be with me. Lay your hand on me that I don't even come out smelling like smoke. And I was able to do 33 treatments. And I was irritated, but I got through them all because Jesus is still walking through fiery furnaces in this century.
What a story. And even, how like your friend gave you that verse just in time for you to actually claim it and how God works all of these things together.
It's amazing. And
And
I've given that verse to so many women that are going through the same thing.
it's
It's amazing.
really cool. That was a lot of radiation treatments.
It was. Now, the radiation
Wow.
only a few seconds. You can't have it for a long period of time. But
Still, wow.
you're in that room, and when everyone walks out and the machine runs, it's like, okay, something's happening here. That's kind of
Wow.
normal. But
Mm.
my cancer was on the left side of my body, and they had a new machine that would protect your heart. So maybe that helped as well.
Mm. Wow.
It's a journey.
Beautiful. We have time for one more.
Okay.
Seeing your face in the moon.
Oh, I have told so many people I want to be a full moon. And people will look at me like weird. I can, ever since I was a child, I've been fascinated by the full moon because everything lights up outside. And to me, when I say I want to be a full moon, God is the sun.
Right.
And I want to reflect him so much that I can help dispel some of the darkness. I will never be the true source like daylight. I will never be that source. But maybe I can be a reflection that some of the darkness is dispelled and his brightness will shine through the darkness.
That is a beautiful picture. Right. Instead of being a sliver of the moon or half the moon or whatever, you want to be the full moon.
The full moon, just shining down.
Aww, that is so cool. Well, Cookie, why don't you share with us? I know you have a topic that you really like to share with people, your vessel topic. Tell us just a little bit about that.
One of the topics, and I got this from you, to always have one that you're very familiar with. And the one that I've used the most, Marnie, has to do with vessels, becoming a vessel for the Lord. That word vessel is an Old Testament term, and from the King James. When I looked up in Strong's Concordance, there's 193 times that word is used. So if God uses it that many times, it's important. And a vessel can be a pot, a basin, any type of container. It can be made of any type of surface, metal, clay, silver, gold. It can be any size and any color.
Right.
And that to me describes women. And so in this talk that I give, I bring 5 different vessels that represent 5 women from the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Cool.
What I do with those, I do the story from the Bible. I talk about how that woman was led through various things in life and overcame them. And then I finish up by bringing a vessel that represents myself. And before the retreat, usually this is done at a retreat because we need time. And then I ask women before it happens to bring something that they think represents their own lives. And that's the blessing, Marnie. You should see what they bring. I mean, I had one woman that brought a set of nesting dolls. And at the end, she gave them to me so I could remember her. What she was on the outside. And then as God peeled the layers, how God showed her heart. I had one lady that brought a tea bag that she felt like the stronger the water was, the more that she was able to show who she was. That, God worked through a lot of hard situations in her life. So it's amazing what these ladies bring. Blessings they are. But I love this topic because it can be anybody, any shape, any size, and then we relate it to women in the Bible.
Oh, that's really cool. And do you have a favorite verse or a theme verse for life?
I do. It's may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. And that's found in Psalm 19:14.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, thank you, Marnie. I've so appreciated the opportunity.
And you guys can learn more about Cookie at womenspeakers.com. If you click on Pennsylvania, she'll show up right there. Otherwise, at her own website, which is thesoundingboardteachingministries.com. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful day. See you next time.